Hello my friends and welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about two different types of authentication: cookies-based authentication and token-based authentication. We're going to talk about the differences and how to implement each one of them. So let's get started. As you can see, I'm in a new environment, new room, new apartment, new everything. And that's actually one of the reasons why I was not able to record any videos in the last 2 weeks or so. Because that last apartment was not the best in terms of living or recording videos. So regardless of that, let's get back to business and discuss the first type of authentication, which is cookies-based authentication. Now, in order to understand the cookies-based authentication, we need to understand what cookies are in the first place. Now, regardless of what people tell you on YouTube on what cookies are just a means of communication. It's just a way to communicate any piece of string. So anything that we can send as a string can be sent by cookies. But mainly, that's a common way of using cookies, which is authentication. So how it works? It works in a way that cookies are automatically sent from our browser to our servers. So we don't need to do anything on the front end in order to configure something, some options or anything to send the cookies, because they are automatically sent by our browsers. And in order to manage how authentication can work inside a cookie, I created this simple diagram to show you how it works. So it works in a way that the first thing that we have, let's say here, is that the first request that we make from the browser to the server, we need to authenticate against our server using a username and password. So when we send the username and password, the server checks inside the database to check if the username and password that we entered are correct or not. And if they are correct, the server creates a piece of string, a random piece of string, and attaches it to the cookie, okay, in the first place, on the set cookies header. And then that piece of string is also stored inside the database. And that string, as we said, it's sent by the headers to the browser. And when the browser sees this set cookie header, it attaches this string to its cookies, so that whenever we make any request in the next time, okay, any request we make in the future to the same domain, to the same server, we send automatically, as I told you, it's automatically sent. We send this string, which is inside the cookie. Okay, we send it to the server, and the server checks on that string against the database. So it sees if this string matches the same string that we stored inside the database. So if they are the same, okay, we can say that, yeah, this user is right and is correct. So we send them 200 OK, which means you have access to you can access to the resources or whatever resources you requested in the first place. And probably if we decided to reject the request because the string is not correct, in that way we can send that, yeah, you don't have any authorization or permissions to access this type of services or whatever we have on the server. Okay, so that's it about cookies. And now let's move on to the next type of authentication, which is token-based authentication. In token-based authentication, mainly we have the dominant player, which is JWT, which is called JSON Web Token. So it works like this. We have something called payload. Okay, the payload can be any piece of information, but it has to be non-sensitive information. I will show you later why it must be insensitive. And the second thing we have is secret key. So on the server, okay, this process happens on the server. On the server, we attach the payload to, first of all, we deal with the payload with a secret key. And that secret key, its job is to encrypt that payload that we have into something called a JWT or a token. So a token is basically like a digital ID that identifies whatever user who is using our server. So when this JWT is sent to the browser, and when the browser wants to authenticate against our servers, it sends the JWT token. But in this case, it's not sent automatically. We have to attach it to something called authorization header. I will show you later. But anyway, the JWT token is sent to the server, and once sent to the server checks if this JWT token is actually created using its own key or a different key. Because if it was created using a different key, it will reject the request and say, yeah, you have tampered with the token, so you don't have any permission to the servers, to the services that we have. But if the server affirms that this JWT token is created using that same token that it was originally created from, if it can affirms that, then it gives access. Okay, so the job of the key is to encrypt and decrypt the JWT token. Now, before I go forward and show you this diagram, I want to show you the original website of JWT. If you go to the original website of JWT, you can read on what JWTs are in technical terms, but what we are interested in is this part, which is encoded and decoded. So let's suppose that we have this payload, as I told you. This payload can have any piece of string like name or ID probably. Let's say here, expiration date, XP date, and then we attach some date to this. Okay, some date. Okay, as you can see, whenever I write something here, the JWT token is changed on every piece of string that is changed. So that is called encryption, because it encrypts this data, this payload, to this format. But how does it encrypt it? It encrypts it using a key, okay, like a secret key here. Let's suppose it's called a secret. Okay, for example, if I called my secret key secret, this piece of string will be generated. But let's suppose that we decide to change the secret key to something else, like hello world. Okay, in that case, the JWT token is changed dramatically, and that way we can make sure that the JWT token that is sent to our servers is actually created using this piece of string, not using something else. Okay, so although that this JWT token that we send to this browser, the user can see this token, and we can copy paste this token. Okay, we can copy paste this token inside here and check the payload. So the user can actually see the payload. It's not something hidden from him. He can see the payload, but if the user tries to manipulate the payload in any shape or form, the authentication will fail, because although he can change the payload, but he doesn't know our secret key, and that's the main point. The secret key is called secret key for a reason, because if any user gets access to our secret keys, then they can do anything actually in terms of authentication. So there is no worry in terms of having our data or our payload in public. But the main point that I want to tell you is that don't put any secret information or credentials like username and password or something very secret to the users inside the payload, because it's a public information. We need to do something general like user ID or username, probably username not, just user ID and expiration date and a name probably. So you need to choose and decide on what to put inside our payload. But just remember that whatever you put in the payload, it's always public information, and you don't want your password or user's password to be in public. Okay, so that's it, and let's now see the workflow, or in a diagram, how the authentication using JWT works. Here in front of me, you can see that I created this simple diagram that shows you how authentication using JWT works. So the first request is made from the browser to the server in order to authenticate using username and password, as we discussed already, using cookies. So once the username and password are checked, that they are correct combination, the server creates this JWT token, as I told you, and sends it to the browser, okay? And the browser, whenever the browser wants to authenticate against our server, it has to send suppose that, we need to get access to products, and products is a secret page that we don't need anyone to get access to the products. They must be authenticated. They must have an account on our servers. So once they have an account on our servers, they can see the products. Let's suppose that. So in the browser sends the request to the server, but inside the request that is made to the server, it has to send authorization header. There is a header called authorization. We need to send the JWT token inside the authorization header, and the JWT token is actually usually we put it after a word called bearer, because it's a bearer token, because bearer means carry, so it carries, it carries the token from the browser to the server. So anyway, we have this bearer token. We send it to the server, and the server checks on that JWT token and checks if the token was created using the same secret key or not. If it was created using the same secret key, then it gives access to the client or to the browser that made that request, and the user can then access our services, like products in this case. They can see the product name, prices, and stock or whatever. So that's it, all about token-based authentication and cookies-based authentication. And I wanted to tell you a last note, which is how I personally use the authentication method in general. Personally, I like to follow a simple flow when it comes to authentication using a username and password, which is creating a JWT token. But instead of sending that JWT token in the traditional way without a database, as you can see, I don't have any database like in the cookies way. Instead of doing that, what I do is I send the JWT token in a cookie. Why I do that? Because if I work in a team, I don't need my front-end developers to worry about sending the authorization header, as you can see here, in every request, because the authorization header is not sent automatically from the browser to the server. The developers has to configure the request in a way that it sends this authorization header. Now, it's not the hardest thing in the world to do that, but it's always good to have less code and have less headache. So I put the JWT inside the cookie and send it to the browser, and then the browser can send the JWT token automatically to our servers. And this is a production level way of doing authentication. Now, of course, there are better ways of authenticating the user, like auth authentication, but I'm talking specifically about using username and password, So that's all I have, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please click the like button below and subscribe to my channel to support me and to support my channel, and also for the YouTube algorithm, and for you to get notified about more videos like this in the future. And until then, take care of yourselves and see you very soon.